Hey guys, welcome to episode number 595. Today is Wednesday, so it's DIY Wednesday, and we're doing this one from the beach because we can't take a vacation without upsetting the YouTube algorithm, apparently. Now, I watched a video from Rachel O'Leary about a month ago talking about cigarette filters and how you can use those in aquascaping. So I thought I would buy some, give it a try, and show you guys the results. But before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you want to help support this channel, you can always go check out myaquariumbox.com. Alright guys, this is going to be a quick DIY Wednesday video. We have cigarette filters here, and I picked these up online. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Essentially, people use them when they roll their own cigarettes, and they're just little tiny cylinders. You can get them in a few different sizes, and I believe they used to be made out of cotton, but these ones are made out of cellulose acetate, and it comes in a nice big package here, so you get plenty of them. And essentially the idea is that you use these cigarette filters to help connect your pieces of aquascaping stone and your pieces of driftwood together in an aquascape, which we'll take a look at in just a minute. So here's our cigarette filter, and it's got this like outer paper coating, and you can just sort of rip that and tear that away. We're not going to use that portion. What we are going to use is the soft fibrous material that's inside. And again, it does look a lot like cotton. And this you can sort of pull apart into any shape or size. And this is what we're going to use to help attach our stone and our driftwood together. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would I need to attach my stone and driftwood together? Well, if you're making an aquascape and you're trying to do something that is a little off balance, say attaching this rock here to this rock here, sometimes just wedging the rock in isn't enough. In order to give it extra stability, to make sure it never falls over, you have to actually glue it together. And what a lot of people use is cyanoacrylate super glue. This is the gel version. You can also get it in a more liquidy version. Usually people like the gel version, but apparently when you're using cigarette filters, you can actually get away with using the less expensive liquidy version, because what you're trying to do is get this to sop up as much of that super glue as possible. Now, if we take a close look here, you can see underneath we have cigarette filters and super glue already placed inside the joint between these two pieces of rock. This being one piece of rock and this being the second piece of rock. And I let that sit for 24 hours to completely dry, and I must say it is incredibly strong. That bond worked really well. And essentially what you do is you just stuff the cigarette filters into the gap as densely as you can, and then you squirt your super glue in after it, and you allow that to sort of sop up all of the super glue, and then when it dries it becomes like a super strong bond to bond two pieces of stone together. And the idea here is that if you just used super glue, you would only get a few points of contact between the rocks. Wherever one point of the rock hit another point of the rock and you put a little dab of super glue, that's a very small surface area for those rocks to be glued together. So it's not as strong of a bond as using the cigarette filter to completely fill the space and to completely connect the two surfaces together. So the end result is a very strong bond that you can make very large structures with. So this is an example of two stones that have been glued together, and we only used like 2 or 3 of these cigarette filters. The next example that I want to look at is taking a piece of driftwood. In this case we have a very nice piece of spider wood, and this is also attached to a rock with our cigarette filters. And again, the idea here was that we positioned our driftwood exactly how we would want it in our scape. And you can see there's only a few points of contact here. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here, there's 1 and 2 here. Just a few points of contact where this wood comes into contact with the rock itself. But if we look underneath, we can see the little white dabs where we do have our cigarette filter attaching the driftwood to the rock itself. And again, the method here was I positioned the driftwood exactly how I wanted it, held it in place with one hand. I stuck my cigarette filters underneath the piece of driftwood right where the rock is touching the driftwood, and then again I squirted my cyanoacrylate super glue into that joint so that I have a larger surface area of wood that's contacting the rock, and it sort of just bonds the two together, and it really like soaks up and holds that super glue in the right spot so it doesn't run, and so you get a larger point of contact between your two surfaces. And again, this is like a 1 or 2 pound rock, and you can see I'm just holding this by the driftwood here. It's a very strong connection, and this is never really ever going to let go. So you can create some very beautiful aquascapes very quickly in about 24 hours to let this stuff dry. And it's a more permanent structure, so you don't have to worry about using cotton thread to tie driftwood down to keep it from floating. You don't have to worry about rocks falling over if they're off balance with each other. You can just use your cigarette filters and a little bit of cyanoacrylate glue, put it in the right spot, and then wait 24 hours, and then you've got the strongest bond that you are ever going to get between those two surfaces. So that was a great tip from Rachel O'Leary. Go watch her video on the topic, and I'm happy that I purchased some cigarette filters to test it out, and I can say that it works amazingly well. So if you want to try this out, I will leave a link in the description down below to pick up some cigarette filters and also some cyanoacrylate glue so you can test this out yourself on your next scape. You don't need a lot. I'd say a package this size is going to do you for quite a long time, and you know, a bottle this size is fine as well. Now, I use the gel version of the glue. Apparently, you can also use the regular version of the cyanoacrylate glue. I think they probably work just about the same. This one worked fine, so I'm sure they both work just the same. Anyways, guys, that's the quick little DIY video for you today. We've got our driftwood and our aquascaping stone attached to one another. I thought it was a successful experiment. I'm not really into aquascaping, but I thought this was a great tip to help you guys out on your next scape. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.